We're reading, continuing the Characteristics of Mysticism in Evelyn Underhill, who is one of the top analysts in mysticism. It's around 100 years since this was written, so it's centennial, this intuition of the real lying at the root of the visible world and sustaining its life is present in the modified form in the arts. Perhaps it were better to say must be present if these arts are so justify themselves as heightened forms of experience. Yeah, the better art is mystical, right? It's written by the gods. It is this which gives to them that peculiar vitality, that strange power of communicating a poignant emotion, half torment and half joy, which baffle their more rational interpreters. We know that the picture, which is like a photograph, the building which is at once handsome and commodious, the novel which is perfect transcript of life, fail to satisfy us. It is difficult to say why this should be so, unless it were because these things have neglected their true business, which was not to reproduce the illusions of ordinary men, but to catch and translate for us something of that secret plan, that reality which the artistic consciousness is able in a measure to perceive, quote, painting as well as music and poetry exist and exults in immortal thoughts, quote unquote, says Blake. That, quote, life-enhancing power, unquote, which has been recognized as the supreme quality of good painting, has its origin in this contact of the artistic mind with the archetypal, or if you like, the transcendental world, the underlying verity of things. A critic on whom poetic genius has brought about the unusual alliance of intuition with scholarship testifies to the same truth. Is that a chorus of dogs? What kind of art is that?
What kind of dog is that?
Are those dogs enlightened or just...
They don't want to listen to you.
They don't like what I'm reading. Some truth when he says of the ideals which governed early Chinese painting, quote, in this theory, every work of art is thought of as an incarnation of the genius of rhythm manifesting in the living spirit of things with a clearer beauty and intenser power than the gross implements of complex matter allow to be transmitted to our senses in the visible world around us. A picture is conceived as a sort of apparition from a more real world of essential life. That more real world of essential life is the world in which the free soul of the great mystic dwells, hovering like the six-winged seraphim before the face of the Absolute. The artist, too, may cross its boundaries in his brief moments of creation, but he cannot stay. He comes back to us, bearing its tidings with Dante's cry upon his lips. Dante went there. Non erano da chi sia le proprio come Se no ci la mia monte fu qualcosa da la fu levocare utica la balabane. What did he say? Do we know any Italian? Who's going to translate? Look it up, I guess. You can look it up in the footnote. I would get the book and just read it. The mystic may say, is indeed bound to say, with Saint Bernard, my secret to myself. Try how he will. His stammering and awestruck reports may be hard to understand, but those who are already in the way, but the artist cannot act. Thus, on him has been laid the duty of expressing something of that which he perceives. He is bound to tell his love. In his worship of perfect beauty, faith must be balanced by works. By means of veils and symbols, he must interpret his free vision, his glimpse of the burning bush to other men. He is the mediator between his brethren and the divine, for art is the link between appearance and reality. But we do not call everyone who has this partial and artistic intuitions of reality a mystic, any more than we call everyone a musician who has learned to play the piano. The true mystic is the person in whom such powers transcend the merely artistic and visionary stage, and are exalted to the point of genius, in whom the transcendental consciousness can dominate the normal consciousness, and who has definitely surrendered himself to the embrace of the reality, as artists stand in a peculiar relation to the phenomenal world, receiving rhythms and discovering truths and beauties which are hidden from other men. So this true mystic stands in the peculiar relation to the transcendental world, there experiencing actual but to us unimaginable tension and delight. His consciousness is transfigured in a peculiar way. He lives at different levels of experience from other people, and this, of course, means that he sees a different world. Since the world, as we know it, it is the product of certain scraps or aspects of reality acting upon a normal and untransfigured consciousness. Hence, his mysticism is no isolated vision, no figurative, fugitive glimpse of reality, but a complete system of life carrying its own guarantees and obligations. As other men are immersed in and react to natural and intellectual life, so the mystic is immersed in and reacts to spiritual life. He moves towards that utter identification with its interest, which he calls, quote, union with God. He has been called a lonely soul. He might more properly be described as a lonely body, for his soul, peculiarly responsive, sends out and receives communications upon every side. The earthly artist, because perception brings with it the imperative longing for expression, tries to give us in color, sound, or words a hint of his ecstasy, his glimpse of the truth. Only those who have tried know how small a fraction of his vision he can under the most favorable circumstance, contrive to represent. The mystic, too, tries very hard to tell an unwilling world his secret. But in his case, the difficulties are enormously increased. First, there is the huge disparity between his unspeakable experience and the language which will most nearly suggest it. Next, there is the great gulf fixed between his mind and the mind of the world. His audience must be bewitched as well as addressed, caught up to something of his state, before they can be made to understand. Were he a musician, it is probable that the mystic could give his message to the other musicians in the terms of that art far more accurately than language will allow him to do, for we must remember that there is no excuse but that of convenience for the preeminent amongst modes of expression which we accord to words. These correspond so well to the physical plane and its adventures that we forget they have but the faintest of relations with transcendental things. Even the artist, before he can make use of them, is bound to rearrange them in accordance with the laws of rhythm, obeying unconsciously the rule by which all arts tend to approach the condition of music. Do you think all arts tend to approach the condition of music?
Yeah, certainly. Music, since music is one of the manifestations of truth. Music and light. It is inescapable.
She's stating the things that people maybe you realize intuitively or thought about as an artist, but she states it in writing. She put what we think in writing. We're reading because of the fact that she puts into writing what we all were thinking about, what we thought. She put in writing the characteristics of mysticism. We're reading from Evelyn Underhill's.
I didn't think of all those things.
I thought you knew all that stuff in advance, but you never wrote it down. She wrote down what we were thinking.
No, I was not thinking for that. Before, beyond.
All right.
Such expanded thing.
Well, now we've thought what she thought, so we have an advantage. Reading from Mysticism.